Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. As the night wore on, Brielle found herself having more fun than she'd had in years. She danced with Sarah and Julia, laughed at their jokes, and even struck up conversations with a few strangers who complimented her outfit. During a slower song, Brielle excused herself to get some water. As she stood at the bar, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find a shy-looking young man smiling at her. "Hi," he said, his voice barely audible over the music. "I'm Peter. I was wondering if you'd like to dance?" Brielle hesitated for a moment, looking over at Sarah. Her girlfriend caught her eye and gave her an encouraging nod. Turning back to Peter, Brielle smiled. "I'd love to. I'm Brielle." As they swayed to the music, Peter said, "You know, I've been working up the courage to talk to you all night. You just seemed so confident and beautiful out there." Brielle felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "Thank you," she said. "To be honest, this is my first time out at a club like this. I was pretty nervous at first." Peter's eyes widened slightly. "Really? You couldn't tell at all. You seemed so at ease." As they continued to dance, Brielle found herself opening up to Peter. There was something about his gentle demeanor that made her feel comfortable. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, feeling a sudden urge to be honest. Peter nodded, his eyes curious. "I'm transgender. I only recently started living as my true self." Peter's face softened with understanding. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Brielle. That must have taken a lot of courage." They moved off the dance floor to a quieter corner where they could talk more easily. Peter shared that he had a cousin who was also transgender, and they had long conversations about identity and self-discovery. "It's a journey, isn't it?" Peter said thoughtfully. "Figuring out who we are, who we want to be." Brielle nodded, feeling a connection with this kind stranger. "It is, but it's also incredibly freeing. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm truly myself." As they talked, Brielle felt a sense of peace wash over her. Here she was, having a thoughtful conversation about her identity with someone she'd just met, in a public place. It felt like another step forward in her journey. Eventually, Sarah and Julia found them, and Peter excused himself with a warm smile and "It was lovely to meet you, Brielle." As they left the club later that night, Brielle felt a sense of accomplishment. She'd faced her fears, had fun, and even made a new friend. She looked at Sarah and Julia, feeling a rush of love for these amazing women who had supported her every step of the way. "Thank you both for tonight," she said as they walked to the car. "I don't think I could have done this without you." Sarah pulled her into a hug. "You're stronger than you know, Brielle. We're just here to remind you of that." Julia nodded in agreement. "Tonight was just the beginning. You're going to do amazing things, sis." As they drove home, Brielle felt a sense of excitement for what the future held. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew she had the strength and support to face them. She was Brielle now, truly and completely, and she was ready to embrace every aspect of her journey. In the weeks that followed, Brielle continued to grow more comfortable in her identity. She started hormone therapy under the guidance of a supportive doctor and began to notice subtle changes in her body and emotions. Each small change felt like a step closer to aligning her outer self with her inner truth. At home, her family continued to be a source of unwavering support. Her mother helped her update her wardrobe, shopping together for clothes that made Brielle feel confident and beautiful. Her father, though initially quiet about the change, showed his support in small but meaningful ways, like the day he came home with a bouquet of flowers for his daughter. Julia remained Brielle's closest confidant, always there with advice or a shoulder to cry on when things got tough. And Sarah, sweet Sarah, loved her through every step of the journey, her commitment never wavering. Aunt Sienna became a regular presence in Brielle's life, offering guidance and understanding that only someone who had walked a similar path could provide. They would meet for coffee, sharing stories and laughing about the unique challenges of navigating the world as a transgender woman. One sunny afternoon, as they sat in a cozy cafe, Aunt Sienna asked, "Have you thought about legally changing your name, Brielle?" Brielle stirred her latte thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about it, yes. It feels like the next big step." Aunt Sienna nodded understandingly. "It's a big decision, but it can also be incredibly affirming. When I changed my name, it felt like I was finally claiming my true identity in the eyes of the world." Brielle smiled, imagining how it would feel to see Brielle on her driver's license, her credit cards, her mail. "I think I'm ready," she said, feeling a surge of excitement. "Will you help me with the process?" "Of course, dear," Aunt Sienna replied, reaching across the table to squeeze Brielle's hand. "I'd be honored." The process of legally changing her name turned out to be a journey in itself. There were forms to fill out, court appearances to make, and a myriad of official documents to update. But with each step, Brielle felt more and more like herself. The day she received her new driver's license in the mail, with Brielle printed in bold letters, she cried tears of joy. She threw a small celebration with her family and closest friends, a party to welcome Brielle officially into the world. As she continued her transition, Brielle also began to think about her future. She had always been interested in psychology, fascinated by the workings of the human mind. Now, with her own experiences of self-discovery and transformation, she felt drawn to the field in a new way. "I think I want to become a therapist," she told Sarah one evening as they cuddled on the couch, "maybe specializing in gender identity issues. I want to help other people on their journeys, the way so many people have helped me." Sarah's face lit up with pride. "That's a wonderful idea, Brielle. You'd be amazing at that." With her goal in mind, Brielle threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor. She researched psychology programs, studied for entrance exams, and began volunteering at local organizations that supported transgender individuals. Through her volunteer work, she met many other transgender people, each with their own unique story. She listened to their experiences, offered support where she could, and found herself growing and learning with each interaction. One day, while volunteering, Brielle met a young person named Alex who reminded her a lot of herself at the beginning of her journey. Alex was just starting to explore their gender identity and seemed overwhelmed and scared. Brielle approached them after the meeting. "Hey," she said gently, "I couldn't help but notice you seemed a bit overwhelmed. Would you like to talk?" Alex looked up at her with wide, grateful eyes. "Yes, please, I don't know where to start." They found a quiet corner and sat down. Brielle listened as Alex poured out their fears and confusion, nodding in understanding. When Alex finished, Brielle shared her own story, watching as relief and hope bloomed on Alex's face. "It's not an easy journey," Brielle said, "but it's so worth it. And you don't have to do it alone. There are so many people here who want to support you." As Alex left that day with resources and a promise to return next week, Brielle felt a warmth in her chest. This was why she wanted to become a therapist, to be there for people like Alex, to offer the support and understanding she had been lucky enough to receive. Months passed, and Brielle's life continued to evolve. She was accepted into a prestigious psychology program, celebrated her 1-year anniversary of starting hormone therapy, and watched with joy as her body continued to align more closely with her true self. Her relationship with Sarah deepened, their love growing stronger through every challenge and triumph. They began to talk about their future together, dreams of a shared home, maybe even a family someday. One fall evening, as they walked hand in hand through a park ablaze with autumn colors, Sarah suddenly stopped and turned to face Brielle. "Brielle," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "this past year has been an incredible journey. Watching you become your true self, supporting you through your transition, it's been the greatest privilege of my life. I fall more in love with you every day." Brielle felt tears welling up in her eyes as Sarah dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from her pocket. "Brielle," Sarah continued, opening the box to reveal a sparkling ring. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, Brielle couldn't speak, overcome with emotion. Then, through happy tears, she nodded vigorously. "Yes," she managed to choke out. "Yes, of course I'll marry you." Sarah slipped the ring onto Brielle's finger and stood up. As they embraced, Brielle felt a sense of completeness she had never experienced before. This was what it felt like to be truly, wholly herself, loved and accepted for exactly who she was. As they walked home, hands intertwined and hearts full, Brielle reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From that rainy day when she first read the article that changed her life, to this perfect evening with her fiancé, every step had led her closer to her true self. She thought of Julia, who had been there from the very beginning, offering unconditional support and love. She thought of her parents, who had embraced their daughter with open arms. She thought of Aunt Sienna, a guiding light on her path. And she thought of Sarah, her constant companion, her rock, now her fiancé. Brielle knew that her journey was far from over. There would be more challenges to face, more milestones to achieve. But she also knew that she was ready for whatever lay ahead. She was Brielle, daughter, sister, friend, future wife, and proud transgender woman. And she was exactly who she was meant to be. As they reached home, "I love you, Brielle," she whispered. "All of you, exactly as you are." Brielle smiled, her heart full to bursting. "I love you too," she replied. "Thank you for loving me through everything, for seeing me for who I truly am." They entered their home hand in hand, ready to begin the next chapter of their lives together. And as Brielle closed the door behind them, she knew that whatever the future held, she would face it as her authentic self, surrounded by love and support. This was her story, her journey, and it was only just beginning. As the days turned into weeks following Sarah's proposal, Brielle found herself caught up in a whirlwind of excitement and planning. The couple decided on a spring wedding, giving them plenty of time to arrange everything just the way they wanted it. One sunny Saturday morning, Brielle sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bridal magazines and color swatches. Sarah was out running errands, leaving Brielle alone with her thoughts and the daunting task of wedding planning. The doorbell rang, startling Brielle out of her reverie. She rose from her chair, smoothing down her floral sundress as she made her way to the door. When she opened it, she was greeted by the smiling faces of Julia and her mother. "Surprise!" Julia exclaimed, holding up a bottle of champagne. "We thought you might need some help with the wedding planning." Brielle's face lit up with relief and gratitude. "You have no idea how much I need this right now," she said, ushering them inside. Her mother wrapped her in a warm hug. "We couldn't let you tackle this all on your own, sweetheart." As they settled around the kitchen table, Julia popped open the champagne and poured 3 glasses. "To the bride-to-be!" she toasted, raising her glass. Brielle felt a rush of emotion as she clinked glasses with her mother and sister. It was moments like these that made her appreciate how far she'd come, how much love and support surrounded her. "So," her mother said, picking up one of the bridal magazines, "have you given any thought to what kind of dress you want?" Brielle bit her lip, a mix of excitement and anxiety fluttering in her stomach. "I've been looking at some options, but I'm not sure. I want something that makes me feel beautiful, but I'm worried about finding a dress that fits well and flatters my body." Julia reached out and squeezed her hand. "Don't worry, sis. We'll find you the perfect dress. There are so many options out there now for brides of all body types." Their mother nodded in agreement. "And we can always have something custom-made if we need to. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable and confident on your big day." As they flipped through magazines and websites, discussing styles and silhouettes, Brielle felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Here she was, planning her wedding with her mother and sister, just like any other bride. It was a moment of normalcy that felt extraordinary in its ordinariness. "You know," her mother said softly, looking up from a page of lace gowns, I always dreamed of helping my daughter plan her wedding. I just never imagined it quite like this." She reached out and took Brielle's hand. "But I wouldn't change a thing, seeing you so happy, so truly yourself. It's more than I could have ever hoped for." Brielle felt tears prick at her eyes. "Mom," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Julia, sensing the need for a moment of levity, raised her glass again. "To finding the perfect dress that will make Sarah's jaw drop." They all laughed, the tender moment passing but leaving a warm glow in its wake. As they continued to plan, the conversation flowed easily from dresses to flowers, from venue options to guest lists. Brielle found herself relaxing into the process, her earlier anxiety melting away in the face of her family's love and support. "Oh!" Julia exclaimed suddenly, her eyes lighting up with an idea. "What about having Aunt Sienna officiate the ceremony? Wouldn't that be perfect?" Brielle's eyes widened at the suggestion. The thought of having her aunt, who had been such an important part of her journey, play such a significant role in her wedding day felt incredibly right. "That's a wonderful idea," her mother agreed. "Sienna would be honored, I'm sure." Brielle nodded, already imagining how special it would make the ceremony. "I'll ask her the next time we meet for coffee. I think Sarah will love the idea, too." As the afternoon wore on, the kitchen table became a sea of lists, sketches, and ideas. When Sarah returned home, laden with groceries, she found the three women laughing over old family photos they'd dug out for potential wedding decorations. "Looks like you've been busy," Sarah said, smiling as she took in the scene. Brielle jumped up to help her with the bags. "We've made so much progress. Wait until you hear all our ideas." As they all pitched in to put away the groceries and clear space for dinner, Brielle felt a sense of contentment settle over her. This was her family, her support system, the people who had stood by her through every step of her journey. And now they were here, helping her plan the next big chapter of her life. Later that night, as Brielle and Sarah lay in bed, going over the day's planning, Sarah turned to her with a soft smile. "You know, seeing you with your mom and Julia today, planning our wedding, it made me fall in love with you all over again." Brielle snuggled closer, intertwining their fingers. "How so?" Sarah's eyes shimmered in the low light. "Just seeing how far you've come, how comfortable you are in your own skin, watching you plan our wedding as your true self. It's beautiful, Brielle. You're beautiful." Brielle felt her heart swell with love. She leaned in, capturing Sarah's lips in a kiss. As they parted, she whispered, "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've been my rock through everything." Sarah pulled her closer, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "We're in this together, always." As they drifted off to sleep, Brielle's mind was filled with visions of their wedding day. She imagined standing before their loved ones, Aunt Sienna officiating, as she and Sarah pledged their love to each other. It was a future she could never have imagined for herself not so long ago. But now it felt real, tangible, and utterly perfect. The next morning, Brielle woke early, her mind still buzzing with wedding plans. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Sarah, and made her way to the kitchen to start the coffee maker. As she waited for the coffee to brew, she found herself drawn to the window, watching as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in soft pinks and golds. She thought about the day ahead. She had a therapy session scheduled, something she still maintained even as she worked towards becoming a therapist herself. Then she was meeting Aunt Sienna for lunch, where she planned to ask her about officiating the wedding. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, Sarah shuffled into the kitchen, her hair tousled from sleep. "Morning, beautiful," she mumbled, wrapping her arms around Brielle from behind and resting her chin on her shoulder. Brielle leaned back into the embrace, savoring the warmth and comfort of her fiancé's touch. "Good morning, love. Sleep well." Sarah nodded, reaching around Brielle to grab her own mug. "Like a rock. You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Brielle admitted. "Too much on my mind." Sarah's brow furrowed with concern. Everything okay?" Brielle turned in Sarah's arms, offering her a reassuring smile. "More than okay. Just excited, I guess. About the wedding, about life. Sometimes it still feels surreal, you know?" Sarah's face softened with understanding. "I know what you mean, but it's real, Brielle. All of it. You, me, our life together. It's all wonderfully, beautifully real." They shared a hug before settling at the kitchen table with their coffees. As they discussed their plans for the day, Brielle felt a familiar surge of gratitude for the life she was living. Every morning with Sarah, every ordinary moment, felt like a gift. Later that day, as Brielle sat across from her therapist, Dr. Marlene Chen, she found herself reflecting on her journey. "You seem particularly content today, Brielle," Dr. Chen observed with a warm smile. "How have things been since our last session?" Brielle couldn't help but beam. "They've been wonderful, Dr. Chen. Sarah and I have started planning the wedding, and yesterday my mom and sister came over to help. It was just normal, you know, in the best possible way." Dr. Chen nodded encouragingly. "That sense of normalcy can be incredibly affirming. How did it feel to be planning your wedding as yourself, as Brielle?" "It felt right," Brielle said, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "Like everything in my life has been leading to this moment. I'm marrying the love of my life, surrounded by people who love and accept me for who I am. It's more than I ever dared to hope for." Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "You've come so far, Brielle. When you first started coming to see me, you were still grappling with your identity, unsure of your place in the world. Now look at you, confident, self-assured, planning a future full of love and possibility." Brielle felt a lump form in her throat, touched by Dr. Chen's words. "I couldn't have done it without support. From Sarah, my family, you, everyone who's been there for me along the way. You had support? Yes," Dr. Chen agreed. "But don't discount your own strength and resilience, Brielle. You faced challenges with courage and grace. Be proud of how far you've come." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.